Is it here?
Powered by Riverside FM.
What if everything you thought you knew about the world was wrong? This week, we're diving into one of the most controversial and enigmatic theories out there, the flat earth. We'll sit down with someone who believes the world is flat and explore their arguments, their evidence, the community, and the reasons why some people reject mainstream evidence. Tonight on Newsworthy, 2 words and 2 question marks.
Hello, I'm Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. Tax season is upon us. Did you know that 47% of Americans are planning to use their tax refunds for everyday expenses, home improvements, and vacations? What if you used your tax refund for a new home instead? Again, this is Ed Locke with USA Mortgage. Your tax refund can be used towards down payment, closing costs, or paying down existing debt to help get approved. So before you spend that tax refund, let's get together and see how to best utilize those funds to invest in your future and your new home. Call or text me at 502-680-0953. Again, that's 502-680-0953. NMLS ID 448908, Das Acquisitions LLC, doing business as USA Mortgage, NMLS ID 227262. This is not a commitment to lend. Additional terms and conditions apply. USA Mortgage is an equal housing lender.
He's alive! Have you checked the children? Get out!
You have scoured the podcast world and finally found us, Newsworthy with Steve and Jerry, where we delve into all things mysterious, macabre, or out of this world, and decide if they are truly newsworthy. 2 words and 2 question marks.
Hello, gentlemen and lady.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Welcome
We
to
didn't have
Newsworthy. Oh, we
the
forgot.
pump up music.
Here we go.
Hold on.
Here we go. Welcome to Newsworthy. 2 words, 2 question marks. I'm Steve.
Jerry,
I'm Brett.
And
our
Sarah.
guest is?
Sarah. Sarah's here
Nice
with
to
us
have you
tonight.
back, Sarah.
We're stoked to have Sarah with us tonight. We got a great topic, great stuff, great fun. But I have an observation I have to make right out of the bat.
What is that?
I just realized it today that people are generally shocked to learn that I'm not a very good electrician.
That's one of the oldest friggin' dad jokes.
Nothing?
Nothing.
All y'all suck.
I'm sure that yours is better than that.
I would let you know how I feel, but I bought a dictionary the other day, brought it home, and today I got it out and went to look at it. Every page is blank.
Really?
I have no words to express how angry I am, or how disappointed I am with your joke.
Oh my gosh. I was reading something this week. Do you know why
You can't
should
read.
never
Don't lie.
Listen, I can read. All right. It just might be a little slow, but I can read. So do you know why you should never shout into a colander?
To a colander? Why is that?
Because you'll strain your voice.
Oh, I
Stupid.
like that one.
I like that one.
Come on, Jerry.
What do you call a pencil with 2 erasers?
What?
Pointless. That was my
Better known as the
30-second Google.
Better known as the Steve pencil.
I don't even like you.
Pencil.
I don't even know why I do this show anymore.
I didn't think you ever did.
What?
Know why you did the show with me.
Oh, well, you know. I don't know. Well, it's hot in here today. That's all I want to say. I'm sitting here
Well,
sweating
stop
like
looking at me.
It's just Jerry's here.
Lordy B. My goodness, folks. I apologize
out.
if you watch this on YouTube. I apologize in advance for anything that you have to look at that resembles Jerry.
Actually, Steve or myself. That's why we got Brett on,
Yeah.
to improve the looks of the show.
It's the whole reason you're here, Brett,
And the
because you're
IQ.
pretty and we're not. Yeah, and you're right. It raises the IQ by at least 2 points.
Exactly.
Probably brings it down a little bit.
No.
So have you been, sir? We've not had you
Sir?
on here in a long time.
I know. I've been busy with work and, getting fat. And so wasn't feeling too hot for a little while, but things are starting to roll. So I was like, listen, people, I'm very busy Wednesday. I can't be working that day. I got the Steve and Jerry show to go on.
There you go. Priorities, right?
Well,
That's
we
right.
appreciate you coming on tonight. And I just got to say, tonight's episode, you're representing a group of folk that, in my research, 10% of the United States overall agrees with you. Jerry, what was the number? 33% of all people.
YouTube.gov did a poll, I think in 2018 or 2019, and it showed that in young adults ages 18 to 24, 33% no longer believe that the Earth is a sphere.
So this is something that we had done the show before. It was kind of a train wreck. We call it goose a goose when we see it, or when we lay an egg, we lay an egg. So we wanted to revisit it because a lot of you fans wanted to hear it. You wanted to talk about it. So I went out and I started asking people who believes this. And Sarah, you were brave enough, and I just got to say,
you got a few of you.
I put a post on Facebook. I had a bazillion people say, "Yep, I believe it," but no one was brave enough to come on the show except you. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I don't know if congratulations are in order, but there goes.
I mean, it was hard to. You could tell that people are trying to really shut this argument down, because I was trying to Google just good flat Earth arguments just to try and prepare, and almost all the articles were like, I mean, you had to go several pages in to really.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to find any mainstream outlet going with the flat Earth thing at all. It's all they do is try to talk you down. They just try to talk you down like you're an idiot.
I, for one, will say that far more people in my immediate and close family believe in the flat Earth theory than I would have ever thought possible. Now, my sister, I'm going to throw her under the bus. Don't care, Elizabeth. This is coming to you. Her son, Will, my cousin, Amanda. There's lots of people in my family that are like, yep, Earth's flat. Says it in the Bible, 4 corners, permanent, the whole works.
I was going to bring that up.
And,
yeah, right here, buddy.
And I was like, oh, wow. It really opened my eyes up, because in my sphere of influence, the numbers bared out to be what the poll numbers were for the most part. So, Sarah, we're going to let you take it away. We want you to explain what you want to explain, and then we're going to try to see if you can convince us, we can convince you, or we just agree to disagree. There's not going to be any personal attacks, so feel free to state whatever's on your mind. We're going to try to drill down as best 4 people can do on whether this is a real thing or not.
I got you.
Take it away.
Well, the most important part of this whole thing is that for me, it is a religious thing. It's because I believe what the Bible says. And it doesn't bring up a sphere, a circle, or anything like that. It's pretty plain saying that it's the way it describes Earth being created with the firmament and the waters between the waters and all that stuff. So just growing up that way and believing what the Bible says is true. But I also have been, I know you're a pilot, Steve, so you can probably argue this one, but I've been on like 35 commercial airplane flights that I could count in my head being up there. And I'm always a window seat sitter because I want to see everything. I love being in an airplane and going up and down and checking everything out. I always notice that the windows have a curve on the edge of it, right? The glass is curved, and I don't think that's on accident. Because if you just stick your eyeball to the glass or put your phone up against it, it's pretty flat when you're looking at it. And so, just for the show, I looked up how high the airplanes go. and it's 35,000 feet, 31 to 38,000 feet, and you got to go just about 35,000 feet to be able to see the curve. So if I've been on an airplane 35 times, I've never seen a curve. So that's just my own experience. It's always been flat until I get up and over the clouds and you can't see anything. But everything always seemed very flat to me. And that was just a little joke I would have. Whoever I was sitting with, I'd look out the window and I'd be like, it looks pretty flat to me, and we'd all have a good laugh. So, I also found something. I went down a little rabbit hole. The only place I could find anything legit was YouTube, believe it or not. And got all my notes here. 44 government documents that admit that there's a flat firmament Earth. And I thought that you might find it interesting that most of it is from NASA. And where is the little pagey at? So they published a paper. It was from the School of Computer Science, and this is the school in China where you go to learn how to fly, and they use simulators and all that good stuff. And it goes through there, and it tells you that. Let me read this for you. The aircraft flight motion simulation, as an important part of FVSS, is the flight simulation computer stuff, directly affects the reliability and authenticity of the system. Flight motion simulation effect can be greatly improved by relative mathematical models of aircraft flight dynamics, and this paper is based on two assumptions. The first is that the flight area is the space above ground level where the rotation of the Earth and the curvy motion of mass center of Earth are neglected. So they didn't use a curve or spinning rotation or anything to calculate the math they needed to make the simulation, which I thought was pretty interesting. And then the other one was aircraft is an ideal rigid body, and influence from aircraft body elastic deformations and rotating parts are not considered. So just that one piece of paper tells you that they didn't use any type of. They have this mathematical form for when the Earth is spinning and moving through space and all that crap, but they didn't use that. They used the flat Earth mathematics. And you can Google the mathematics they used for that, which I thought that was cool.
What was that study for? Sorry.
So that study was for the School of Computer Science in China they build their flight visual simulation system.
Okay, gotcha.
And I just want you to know that Sarah is actually using paper, Jerry. Something that I also use.
Honestly, I'm trying to write notes. It would be easier if I had a notepad. I'm kind of wishing I would.
And get it tangible. I don't like the computer thing. I don't know. This is better for me.
I'm old. I write stuff down and I forget where my notebook is. I can't keep up with it.
Yeah.
We did.
And then the silly one, it's Plain in Sight. In Plain Sight, the Sesame Street episode, you can find this on YouTube too, where they put a globe and a rocket on the fiction shelf in their episode, where they telling the kids this is all made up stories, and they have the rocket and the globe sitting on top of that shelf, which I just thought was funny. Just a coincidence, right?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Elmo knows what's really going on.
Elmo knows everything.
Funny videos with Elmo.
Really?
Yeah.
They take his batteries out and put like a drill pack battery pack in them, and
Speed him up.
it's crazy.
Really?
Anyway,
Yeah.
let's not get off topic.
Yeah.
Also, the United Nations, if you go to their website, their flag and their emblem is a flat Earth map, which I thought was cool. Just a coincidence, right?
Well,
yeah, you look that up.
The reason I can answer that one, I want you to finish, and I'll come back to a couple of the points you've made.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go
Let her
ahead.
finish.
Yeah,
No, you
No,
go
no,
ahead
no,
and
go ahead and
finish.
finish.
I don't want to cut you off.
No, I think those were mostly, if I'm honest with you, it's I believe in the flat earth just as much as I believe in Bigfoot, and everybody's, entitled to that opinion and that belief system. So you can't go anywhere until I go through space and break the firmament and see a globe. I will never believe that it's a globe.
Interesting. Well, a couple of things you had mentioned the airplane. The glass curve, the curved glass on the airplanes, especially on passenger planes, is designed to prevent resistance and turbulence. And it also, by it being a rounded glass with curves instead of actual squares, that prevents the natural weak points of the pressure. Inside the plane has a particular pressure, and the outside the plane has a different pressure. And if back in the 1950s or 60s, there was one particular aircraft that had square windows, and that plane would take off, and as soon as it got to level, it would often pop those windows, or those windows would crack, causing ridiculous amounts of maintenance and safety concerns. So that's why they got rid of the square windows on airplanes.
and that's why they use square windows and square doors on rockets, things like that.
Yes,
Because sharp corners create like a stress concentration.
right.
When it's circular, it distributes the stress on the glass a lot better.
So that's kind of the reason they do that at 35,000 feet, which is the normal cruise altitude for most passenger jets, especially anything above a twin engine 737, 727 back in the day. Um, that is a good cruise altitude. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's the altitude you're going to fly on every flight, and the reason for that is uh, the pilots and the aircraft know where the wind resistance is less. So what
Right.
that means is, because one of the biggest costs in airlines is fuel. So if you're flying east to west, you're going to fly at whatever altitude you're allowed to fly to, and that's all handled by ground control. But you're going to be in, say I'm flying at 35,000 feet and I'm going into a wind of 35 knots. If I can drop 5,000 feet and my wind drops down to 5 knots, I'm going to save an immense amount of fuel because I'm not forced to fly against that wind. So you would call into the ground control and say, hey, at 29,000 feet, I can get 5 knot winds as opposed to the 25 knot winds that I'm facing now. May I drop 5,000 feet? They'll say yes. You go down 5,000 feet, and all of a sudden you're below that firmament line, or not the firm, but the curvature line. And if you're
35,000.
flying west to east, now you're looking for the opposite. You're wanting to get into the winds that are moving the fastest because you're going to save that same amount of fuel by being pushed along by the wind. So maybe that is at 30,000 feet or 35,000 or even a little higher, because planes are designed to go a little higher. Most of them don't go
Yeah,
above
they go.
40.
They're
But
going like 35 to 41. And as many times as I've
right.
been out in an airplane and looked out the window, I've never seen a curve.
Well, first of all, it's only long distance flights that go that high to begin with, correct? Short distance flights,
It
not.
depends what you're like. A flight from Lexington to Atlanta will never get that high. But what Sarah's talking about, a flight from, say, Arizona to Kentucky
Sure,
would get
cross
that high.
country
Yeah,
or
would absolutely get
intercontinental
that high.
will always get that high. But several
Yeah.
factors. At 35,000, you've got to be at 35,000 to begin to see the
Right.
curvature.
Right.
Yeah, you can barely see it.
Barely perceptible at 35,000. So it's got to be above that, basically. It's also got to be clear skies. I would like to address the biblical aspect for a second. You
Absolutely.
mentioned that that was one of the reasons why that you originally thought that, and I know, yeah, I've met several people who believe the exact same. They believe that the Bible, there's four different verses in the Bible that contain the phrase four corners of the earth. Now, most theologians take this to simply mean the cardinal directions north, south, east, and west, um, or more simply, just remote parts of the earth. There's another phrase, the ends of the earth, that is commonly used in the Bible, but this phrase usually is referring to the people, not the parts of the earth. in most examples is talking about the people that inhabit those areas. Now, she mentioned that in no parts of the Bible does it mention the a sphere, which is actually not exactly true. I'd like to direct you to Isaiah chapter 40, verse 22, which says this: He sits enthroned above the circle of the earth, and its people are like grasshoppers. He stretches out the heavens like a canopy and spreads them out like a tent to live in. So, in that particular instance, now again, I understand that flat earthers don't take this to say that it is a globe. They're going to say that it's more of a round disc. I get that. But the one scripture, and it is, of course, I know the only one. Did you find any others, Brett, where the Bible is referring to the roundness of the earth, which again, at face value, seems to be in contradiction of the four corners of the earth? It also lets you believe that the four corners of the earth are certainly not actual corners, that they're referring to something else, which again, most theologians say is north, south, east, and west.
Right.
Yes, Steve.
Sarah, let me ask you. And first of all, please don't take any of what we're saying as an attack directly on you or your way of thinking or your belief. We're literally just having a conversation. But let me ask, if we have or live under a specific firmament, when I was doing research about this, I saw two different models, and I was curious as to figure out which model you believe in specifically. So one of the models
There's
showed
more than two, by the way.
right, but there was two main ones that I saw. The first one was flat Earth, ice ring around, firmament, and then above that was water. Like the firmament was keeping out water. I didn't understand how that worked.
Well, that's Genesis 1, chapter
Yeah,
1,
that's where
verse
the
6.
flood happens. That's where God opened the heavens and flooded the earth in Genesis.
Gotcha.
That firmament
And then this
opened.
Gotcha. And then the second part of that was the point that the firmament is just a hard line and that everything else is below it, and then above the firmament is simply heaven. Um, so which of those do you think that is more accurate? Because I'll tell you, my when in conversations with my family members, it was totally the water thing.
You're basically asking what is her definition, or how does she understand the firmament?
Right, right.
Yeah, so the firmament separates the the waters from the waters. So yeah, that's the firmament this way, and then you have the water here, right, and then the heavens and the water underneath. So basically, what the Bible says, that's what I believe it is.
Well, another part of what he was asking is there's two main theories as far as the edge of the flat disk. One is that the firmament is a globe, a hard shell that comes down. The other is that there's a 200-foot tall wall of ice
All the way around.
all the way around the entire this flat disk. And I think he's asking which one of those, or is it something else that you believe?
Gotcha. No, I'm not really on board with the whole ice thing.
Yeah, they say, and you can Google YouTube videos, and you can pull up 100 videos of people, and I'm using air quotes, getting to the ice wall, and there's a big government-looking ship that kicks them away because they're not supposed to be there. I don't buy that crap.
Yeah, and the alien technology that's inside the walls and in the ocean, that's just a whole other conspiracy.
Right, it really is.
There's a
Yeah.
deep rabbit hole.
Uh-huh.
It is a incredibly deep rabbit hole.
Is there a particular map that you believe, according to your understanding, shows the layout of the Earth?
Yeah, the only one that I could find, I wrote it down here somewhere. It's very old.
I like really old maps.
Orlando Ferguson's map, 1893.
Interesting. I'll look that
If
up.
you can Google that and check that out, I saw that and I was like, that's the one. That's the one that resonates with me.
Well, what's your approach to gravity? Does it exist?
Gravity? What?
Well, see, here's the idea. Gravity, according to scientists who say that we're on a round globe,
Uh-huh.
Gravity is what holds everything to the Earth. Gravity is a force that attempts to pull everything to the center of the Earth. Well, you can't have that if you have a round disk, because in a round disk, the center of the round disk is the center, and
Right.
if there was gravity pulling things to the center, everything would suction everything to the center of. So most flat earthers do not believe in gravity because you cannot have gravity with a flat disk.
Yeah, gravity.
Honestly, that's not even something that I thought about. Like that didn't even cross my mind to
It's one
think
of the
about
biggest
gravity.
it's for a lot of scientists, it's one of the biggest arguments they use against flat Earth is because you can't have gravity. There's no model of a flat Earth that supports gravity because gravity again pulls everything to the center. There's nothing. If you have a flat disk, you're trying to pull everything to the center. Everything would get sucked into the center of the disk.
I want to know what drugs that guy was on when the apple hit his head and he came up with that.
Mr. Sir Isaac Newton, they come up with what? Gravity?
Gravity.
Well, I think that there's a cartoon that just I like the most. It just says "screw gravity," and he goes. "Whoop," he starts flying because he no longer believes in it. So that one of my questions is: so if you believe that the firmament is hard, that we can't go through it, um, why are we spending so much money shooting rockets into it? Like, and for example, I'm using Elon Musk. We see Starlink satellites about once every 3 months that come over the airspace. Are those inside the firmament, or are they on the? Have they punctured the firmament and went to the outside?
No, because if they puncture the firmament, then the waters would come through. You ever seen a rocket go and explode? It looks like it hits something and explodes, and then if you watch the videos, you can see it kind of quiver and wave like a rock hitting a puddle,
Yeah, I have.
and and the
I,
rockets just go. They go, and then they smash into it, and then that's it. So this is why I don't believe
Well, I
we ever
wonder.
been to the moon either.
yeah, well, that's a whole nother thing we're going to do in a
Yeah, we
couple
definitely
in a
want to
month
do
or
that
so,
episode.
right?
Yeah, because
If anything,
there's
we're
a lot.
we're interdimensional traveling, not space traveling. I think.
So I'm a big proponent of Graham Hancock and his theory that during the Younger Dryas, during the last ice age, uh, we were hit with an extraterrestrial being, an asteroid of some sort, a comet, uh, that ultimately caused the Great Flood. And the reason I say that is because there's evidence in the soils that somewhere around that time period that we actually had that happen. That's happened.
And then every civilization has a flood story.
Every single civilization that had the ability to write or tell stories has a flood story.
Yeah.
So, um, and it's just a different way of looking at it. Not one's wrong, not one's right. Um, but that is the fact that I keep imagining when I'm swimming in a pond and you're like looking underwater and under the leaves you can see air bubbles. That would be what you're describing is us in that air bubble. Is that an accurate statement?
I think you can go with that. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to comment on the flight simulation. So sometimes when programmers like code something, they might leave. They might not. They might make assumptions to make the code simpler. And so I'm wondering if that's kind of what happened. I'm not obviously I don't know what the simulation was used for, and if you would like you said, if they're trying to make it as accurate as possible, you would want if and the Earth was round, you would want that in there. But that's just one thing that I was kind of thinking of. Maybe they left it out just for simplicity. I'm not sure. Steve, you've actually flew a plane, so you might have a little bit more input on
Well,
how that would
some
affect.
of those things that they would put those parameters in, so they start you very simple. So I'm not sure that, and then they would expand
Right.
out. So when I first started flying, if it wasn't an absolute pristine perfect day, I couldn't fly. By the end of flight training, We were flying into 20 and 25 mile per hour crosswinds and landing the plane there because eventually you have to become able to handle the diverse conditions, whatever those are. Because especially in a jetliner, you have X number of fuel to get you from A to B because they don't put any more fuel in there than they think that they're going to need.
Right.
They don't.
So you're trying to get as light as
Not to
possible.
scare people who fly.
Small reserve amount.
There's a small reserve amount in case you get hung up, but not to scare people who fly. But if you are flying from Atlanta to New York, you have enough fuel to get to Atlanta, New York, plus 30 minutes.
Can divert to L.A.
No, that's not happening. They don't fuel the whole plane because it does two things. If the plane's completely full of fuel, it costs more fuel to run the plane.
It's heavier. Yeah.
It's
Way
heavier. Right. So fuel is just like water. It's 8 pounds per gallon. And you have to, most pilots, it's on automatic now, but most pilots who are veterans will actually do the calculations in their head. In the big jets, it's not such a big deal. They power through it. But in a small plane, you absolutely have to do the calculation. How much weight do I have in here? How much fuel can I put in the wings before the plane can't plane anymore? So
guys are having to take a calculator and do that. That scares the crap out of me. I figured that would have been done by computers.
It is on the big jets, any passenger jet. I'm talking about the little guys at your local airport. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But to your point, Brett, not to get off on a tangent, but to your point, my guess is those are very beginning pilots that are getting those very simple programs that are just learning how to. And when you do those simulators, it's even different than being in an actual plane. They try to make it as close as possible, but I'm sure Mike, because you have simulator training all year.
Right.
So when you're not flying, you're in a simulator.
Yeah, I guess it gets you used to like instrumentation, and,
right?
Like all the controls.
So, but to do that, they build you up.
Right.
I have I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. You go ahead.
No.
I have a question for you, Sarah. Couple questions.
Okay.
Number one, the last time you were here, I'm sure you remember a round table. Let's imagine that's the disk of the world, the flat Earth.
Okay.
And I've got two objects here. Let's say the orange one is the sun, the little white one.
For those listening, he's got a marshmallow and a basketball.
That's a mint that I'm going to put in my mouth in a minute.
It's a mint?
Do you want to talk about Aristotle, and then we tie this in with that?
Why on earth would you bring a marshmallow-shaped mint to my house? That is so disrespectful.
You've never seen those mints?
Dude, I thought there was a marshmallow this whole time. I love marshmallows.
These are dinner mints.
That's so stupid.
I'm sorry, dinner mints aren't the right shape.
Dinner mints have pissed me off. I'm sorry.
Brett, by all means.
So the reason why, because Aristotle was one of the first people who kind of came up with the Earth as a globe theory, and one of the what Jerry was just about to get into, one of the reasons why he thought the Earth was a globe and not flat, which at that time pretty much everybody, it was universally accepted that the Earth was flat, but lunar eclipses, which is when the moon moves into the Earth's shadow, causing the moon to be darkened. He observed that the Earth's shadow on the moon during a lunar eclipse was always round, which he reasoned could only be the case if the Earth was round. So,
or if it was a disc, which is round. I could say the same thing.
Right.
Round disc. Yeah, that would explain the round shape, yes.
Yeah.
Other than a square.
Yeah.
Here's where I was going with it. According to everything that I've read, again, if our table is the flat disc, the flat Earth, and this is the sun, this is the moon. These two, the sun and the moon, are always above this flat disk, and they're rotating around. When it's on one side, that part is daylight. When it's on the other side, the first part is night. Is that correct? Is that the way that your flat model works?
Yeah.
Back to what Brett was saying with the lunar eclipse. And again, a lunar eclipse is when the Earth comes between the sun and the moon. If you think about what we just described, that means that the moon is going to have to be underneath the Earth. Is that possible, according to a flat Earth model?
No, not at all.
So there could be no lunar eclipse?
I don't know what it
is. Solar eclipse. I'm
So
sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I don't know what it is. I'm not a scientist, you know. Everything I know is what someone's told me or what I read in a book. You know what I mean? So it's not like I
yeah,
Well,
some
can
flat
Sarah,
earth.
you're not alone.
it and be for sure
A
like
lot of
this
people.
is the truth because I don't know. I haven't been up there. You know what I mean? I can just go off of.
One of the arguments.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Brett.
one of the arguments I saw that was that kind of explained it in the view of a flat earther was that basically we live in a simulation type area where like there's like a dome over us, kind of like the firmament, and that itself is it kind of acts as a planetarium in a sense to where and that's why the stars move in a certain way. That's why the sun is seems to rotate. That's why the moon seems to rotate. And so that was one argument I saw was that we're basically in a giant planetarium.
Yeah, or like the
The
stars, they're just basically holes, you know, in our sky so we can breathe. Heard that one too.
I've heard that one. That one cracks me up.
It's like you
Like
just,
we're like the proverbial turtle there that's just hanging out in the box.
yeah, like, yeah,
second
it's just,
question I had related to that, Sarah, was if there's a flat disk and you've got a sun and a moon that rotate around it, and they're on opposite sides from each other, and depending upon which one is in your hemisphere, dictates if it's daylight or nighttime in your area. The next question that I have is how would that explain areas close to the poles that don't have 24 hours within which you have daylight and dark? They have areas close to the poles where you will have days, weeks, months on end where it's all daylight, all night. How can that happen with a flat earth?
well, I feel like I didn't do enough research for this because I don't have the answer for that.
That's okay. I mean, this is just a
No one
conversation.
has the
Well, and
answer to
that was
all of it.
and I think
Like,
that
I don't,
planetarium theory would kind of be used in that as well. It seems like because that theory kind of it encompasses basically that. But yeah, we're just in a simulation essentially, and so all that stuff can
Have,
be explained.
have you guys, and Sarah, you can jump in on this too. Have you guys heard of the final experiment expedition?
No.
no.
So the final experiment, and let me just read from Wikipedia here for just a second because this is a cool topic. The final experiment was a 2024 expedition to Antarctica to test the validity of modern flat Earth beliefs. It marked the first known of any modern flat earthers believed to travel all the way to Antarctica. The expedition took 3 years of preparation, was organized by a guy named Will Duffy, an
He's the pastor.
American Christian pastor who invited a total of 48 online content creators to go with him to Antarctica to witness the midnight sun. It's a natural phenomenon which contradicts most flat earth beliefs. The actual expedition included both flat earthers and globe earthers. Those are people that believe that the earth is a sphere, selected to represent both sides of the flat earth debate. After traveling from Chile to Union Glacier Camp in western Antarctica, expedition members live streamed the midnight sun for several days. And the participating flat earthers all admitted that the midnight sun was a real phenomenon. The larger flat earth community has rejected the results, accusing the participants, including those of the flat earthers, of having faked the expedition and being part of a larger conspiracy to promote the spherical earth uh, movement. I guess the only thing I would ask, and Sarah, this isn't directed at you, this is just for debate, is when you start arguing against your own folks, these people went down in good faith to try to prove or disprove whatever they had that not been a real phenomena and it had proven flat earth, do you think the flat earthers would have just said, "Oh, that's all fake"? or is it just fake because it didn't fit what they wanted their preconceived notions to believe?
I think we've
That could be
mentioned
it too.
yeah, we've had conversations like this about different topics.
Where we
That
refuse to, it's almost human nature to
right.
refuse to accept information that goes contrary to what we
Well,
deeply believe.
I know we talked about. I can't remember if it was crop circles or something like that, where we were talking about how they had scientists come and be like, "No, this is not. This is all fake." Some that are considered by the community to be real. And I think one of the things we mentioned was that the government had paid off these crop circles. You know what I mean? So I think that you could kind of, just
I'll give you
because
an even better one.
Yeah.
Go to Egypt and tell them that the Egyptians didn't make the pyramid and see how fast you're on the next plane out of Egypt.
Really?
They won't.
They absolutely will. Graham Hancock was booted out of Egypt because he stressed that the giant sphinx and the
You can
pyramids.
say it and you're fine, but when you try to convince everyone around you, different story. But you can go and say whatever they care. They're not going to kick you out of the country for saying, "Well, I believe."
Well, you and I can do that.
Right.
A person of significance in
Can't
that
have a
community.
press conference and begin to tell the public. No, yeah, they're not going to allow that. If nothing else, it would kill the tourism for the area.
Why? The pyramids are still there.
They would be afraid that it would hurt tourism.
I'm just saying. And a lot. The reason I bring that up is because it's the same thing. All of a sudden, mainstream archaeological people are afraid to lose because they've written 15 books on how the Egyptians built the pyramids, or a flat earther has written 10 books about how this is, it ruins their credibility if you attack them. Not attack them, that's not a good word. If you try to prove them wrong. So even in this situation with a pastor and a evenly split group of both sphere earthers and flat earthers, they all saw that the midnight sun is a real thing in Antarctica.
It was daylight for long periods of time.
All day for months.
But what is your question?
Well, the point was, why is it that the flat earthers who didn't go all of a sudden attack them and show them that it's fake?
That was the argument I was trying to make, is that we make those same arguments
about everything.
When we have something that we believe in,
somebody disputes it.
Like we've made those arguments on the air where we're like, no, the government is paying off these people to.
What's his name? The guy that I don't believe and you all think is the UFOs in New Mexico.
Talking about Bob Lazar?
Bob Lazar. Perfect example.
Well, no, the perfect example is when Sarah, Brett, or I come up with a very logical and complete theory, and Jerry just doesn't agree with us because he wants to be obstinate. And he tries to show us that we're wrong, even though his evidence has been bought by someone else.
Have you guys ever heard of something called Occam's razor?
Yes.
You have?
Nope.
Tell us what Occam's razor is.
I said I heard of it.
Okay.
I don't know it off the top of my head.
Occam's razor, and this is a philosophy argument going back hundreds of years, if I remember correct. I think it's from the 1400s. And he said that normally, if you have two explanations for anything, the simplest one, the one that requires the least assumptions, is normally correct. I'll give you an example. Let's say you wake up tomorrow morning after a windy night. Two of your trees in your front yard have blown down. Steve's argument would be that two meteorites fell, one struck each tree, and after they struck each tree, they struck each other, simultaneously exploded, destroyed all evidence of themselves.
That would be the magic bullet theory, and I don't believe in that.
That explains everything, right? Two trees. Or my theory is the wind blew them down. Occam's razor. The argument. Say what?
I've never heard that before.
The argument that requires the least number of assumptions. My problem with your arguments, it requires way too many assumptions.
That's not true.
So,
also, the magic bullet theory is not my theory. That is 100% your theory, especially
of what?
The magic bullet theory.
My theory of what?
Of how JFK died. That's what you just described with the trees. One bullet back and forth destroys everything.
I've never said that
I
any
think they
bullet ever went
didn't they
back
have some
and forth.
video footage
Ever.
where
Yes.
the driver.
Yeah,
Anywho,
Anyways,
said
I
there
wanted
are like multiple shooters or something now.
right.
Yeah.
I wanted to get into. I wanted to
Leave it
finish
to
up.
us to go from flat Earth to JFK assassination.
you did it.
Oh yeah, I
What was-
wrote that up.
What was you saying?
I wanted to just finish out Aristotle real quick because I think he made some really good points that were before really Isaac Newton and his law of gravitation and things like that. So we already talked about the lunar eclipses, but the other thing that he noticed was ships when they go out into the ocean and go out in the horizon, the hull would disappear first.
The bottom. It
Right.
disappears not all at once, but the bottom begins to disappear from
Right,
sight.
and the flag is like the last thing to be seen,
The top of the ship.
which would make sense if the Earth was curved and not flat. And this is during the time when it was universally accepted that the Earth was flat. Another thing that we kind of brushed on, but constellations changing with depending on what location you're in. Like if the Earth was flat, you would basically see the same constellations. You would see the same set of stars just at different angles.
So before you get into that, because
He's in the middle of that.
well, no, I'm just saying the star thing. There is an entire whole different level about how the Earth moves through space with
They don't
our
believe
solar system.
Flat Earthers don't believe
Right.
that we're moving.
And I'm thinking
Usually, not all of them.
what I'm
Right.
saying is I'm thinking that whole conversation should be reserved for part 2 because it's a whole nother show. With how the Earth actually moves, how the flat Earthers believe it moves, and as an example, one of the things I saw one of the places I was looking at to research was they and some people believe that we have the sun in all the pictures. It shows the sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, all the way out in a perfect line in a flat plane.
That's only to show how far away they are from the sun.
Right.
It's the only reason for
Me and you are on agreement with that, but to some people, that is
that.
how
Shows a flat.
it shows how it's supposed to be, and it's just not the truth. So it's
Well,
kind of
even
like
flat Earthers don't say that the flat Earth means a flat universe.
Right.
So what you're describing is a flat
Yeah,
universe.
I want to get into that in a second too.
well, I think that's why I was saying all of that stuff is
Yeah, it's really short, but
Okay.
it'll just be a short statement.
I'll
But
go.
I want to finish finishing up Aristotle because again, I think he's one of the most important. If you're of a global sphere, if you believe that the Earth is a globe, then Aristotle was really one of the most famous people who started that theory. So he also argued, which we kind of touched on too, that the sphere is the most perfect shape, and therefore the Earth, as a celestial body, would naturally take that form. He observed the way gravity works, which is pulling everything down, as Jerry was saying, and it would ultimately that action of gravity pulling everything towards the Earth would eventually end in a spherical shape if it's constantly pulling. Dude was a super smart guy back in the day.
Because he agrees with you.
Well,
I
I'm
just
just
think about what he
just
thought
goes off
about
your-
and figured out in his day and time with the limited tools they had.
hundreds of
Alright.
years before Newton.
When he's talking Aristotle, by the way, roughly 300 to 350 years BC.
Right.
Right.
So this
I
is
get
like 2,300 years ago.
So we are fastly approaching our time. So Brett, does flat Earth need more or less coverage? And why, of course.
I don't think it really gets a lot of coverage now. So I would say just leave it the same.
All right. Jerry?
I would say it gets way too much if we've got 1/3 of our youth
That's a good
between
point.
18
I
and
guess,
24 years of age that does not believe that the Earth is a globe. So yeah, I think to me, in my humble estimation, that's all it is. In my opinion, we know everyone's got one. It's misinformation that hurts true science.
Sarah, what do you think?
I think that it definitely needs a little more research and more study, and rather than just going off of mainstream science, we need more people smarter people than us to go out there and try to figure this out with lots of money.
I would agree with Sarah, and I think it deserves more coverage. Only because for two reasons. First of all, um, if we have a third of the younger people in the world who believe this in the United States, that number has to be extrapolated through the world that believe in a flat Earth. Then either we need to teach them why it's a sphere and do a better job of that,
Oh, I believe teaching that.
or we have to figure out why that belief is there in the first
Okay.
place.
I misunderstood your question. I
So
thought you were saying, should we have more
more,
discussion,
more and
more
more,
talk of flat Earth?
and I think that that's a fair question. I think that yes, we should. Uh, one of the things that about this is you, Jerry, tried to find a peer-reviewed, published paper from a scientist who
Who
believed
believed
in
in
flat
flat Earth?
Earth. So if we can't find one of those, we need to do a better job of understanding why the people that believe that, and how we can
Do we have
bring
time for
them.
me to talk about one thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that okay?
Sure. Absolutely.
Because you were saying that. So the one thing that flat earthers will bring up is what's called the Bedford level experiment.
Oh yeah.
And this was an experiment done in the 19th and early 20th century, where they made observations on the old Bedford River, which was like a 6 mile long stretch of river that was flat, basically to prove the Earth's curvature through measurements. So during this period, there were those who believed the Earth would be flat, and the Bedford level experiment sought to prove this view wrong. So the observations made along the old Bedford River showed that a distant object appeared higher than it should if the Earth were flat, indicating the curvature of the Earth. That's what they eventually came to the conclusion of. However, one of the first observations was conducted by a guy named Samuel Burley Robotham, and this was in 1838. And he claimed that he had proven that the Earth was flat. So his observations involved observing a boat on the Bedford River. Um, he noticed that a boat with a flag on its mast appearing to move away was still visible for the full length of the 6 mile canal, even though the Earth's curvature would theoretically hide the top of the mast had the Earth been a sphere. He argued that the constant visibility of the flag disproved the Earth's curvature, as he believed that the top of the mast should have been below this line of sight according to spherical geometry. And he later published his observations in 1849 as a pamphlet titled Zetetic Astronomy, Earth Not a Globe. Um, so, a response to this, one, it was found that he used the incorrect formula to calculate the curvature of the Earth, which led to his error. So, what he used was the curvature is equal to 8 inches times the number of miles squared. He actually got the article or the formula from an article on leveling from the Encyclopedia Britannica, which was back then and still is today a reliable source. For the curvature to be proportional to the number of miles squared, it would actually have to be shaped like a parabola, which is why this is incorrect. However, if you Google the formula to calculate the rise of the Earth, uh, depending on the distance, it will give you this formula. AI shows up, and there's multiple articles that I saw that showed this exact formula.
It still comes almost to the same answer. 7.98 inches is what
Right,
it says.
8 inches per mile or whatever.
Right.
However, the actual formula for curvature, which again I was really surprised when I saw that, is r minus r times cosine of the diameter over 2 times the radius. So you would not see the amount of curvature that he anticipated.
Within 6 miles.
Right, and he also didn't account for the atmospheric refraction, which kind of like a cup with a straw on it with full of water. You're going to see the light refract. That happens. The same thing happens due to the atmosphere. It was so Alfred Russel Wallace. He was a surveyor. Later refuted Robotham's claims by scientifically demonstrating that the effects of the atmospheric refraction and a sight line above the water can make such observations look as if the flag is visible over the entire length of the water. Anyways, I just wanted to bring that up because
You can tell he's an engineer, can't
I just wanted to bring that up because
Sarah, earlier when you were talking about we need smarter people than you and I and Steve, we've
Yeah,
got one sitting here.
there you
This
go.
guy tutored at University of Kentucky, tutored up through calculus
Okay,
4.
well,
So
we
he
need
understands
Brett.
this
that
math
doesn't
more
mean
than we do.
much.
We need Brett to get off
All
of the
right.
computer and go out into the world and do this.
right? So, real quick recap. Brett, thumbs up, thumbs down.
I'm gonna give it a thumbs down.
Thumbs down. Jerry,
Overall, thumbs down.
Sarah,
Woo!
2 thumbs up, and I also give it a thumbs up. 2 and 2 tonight.
All right.
That's not terrible. That's better.
No.
I'm glad I had some backup tonight.
I feel like this argument is continuously going back and forth from the beginning of time to now. It's always, it's flat, it's round, it's flat, it's round. Like, fuck.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
So,
Look, that was an interesting episode, but our journey isn't over yet. If you stay tuned, we have an exciting bonus story coming up after this commercial break.
Hi, this is Edlock with USA Mortgage. When it comes to buying a home, the process can be overwhelming and confusing. With so many options, it can be hard to know where to start. That's why it's important to work with a certified mortgage loan originator. I have the knowledge and expertise to guide you through the process and find the best mortgage option for you. I will work with you every step of the way to ensure that you are getting the best deal possible. So if you're looking to purchase or refinance, please reach out to me at 502-680-0953. So don't take on the stress of buying a home alone. Work with me and I will make your dream a reality. Trust the professionals and make your home buying experience a positive one. MLS ID 448908, DAS Acquisition Company, LLC, doing business as USA Mortgage, MLS ID 227262. This is not a commitment to lend. Additional terms and conditions apply. USA Mortgage is equal housing opportunity.
If you would like to share suggestions for future episodes, an intriguing ghost story, or simply tell us how much you love or hate us, please get in touch with us. You can reach us via email at newsworthywithsteveandjerry@gmail.com or send us a text at area code 540-709-1318.
And now, back to the story. So, this story is for Sarah and Brett. Now, Sarah is an artist in her own right. She is a photographer, she does amazing stuff. Sarah, is there a place that they can go real quick and find your artwork that you have ready for sale?
yeah, it's, crap, putting me on the spot here, buddy. It is. I wasn't expecting this. Let me get it pulled up real quick.
Why don't you do your story and then
Yeah,
she
we'll-
can have that?
Well, let me
Yeah,
do the
let me
story
pull
real
that up.
quick. We'll come right back. We definitely want you to tell where they can get your artwork. Let me tell you, this girl can take some pictures. They're amazingly beautiful. I love them. All right, so in 2017, Italian researchers analyzed a painting of Saint Roch, in 14th century French saint known for curing plague victims, which he later contracted the plague himself. Saint Roch is often depicted as having typical plague swelling on his upper leg. However, this particular medieval painting is different. Saint Roch's leg shows a wound from which it looks to be a long white substance oozes out. In the past, it was thought to be pus, like it was just draining, but very recently, the authors of a recent study are convinced it was actually a worm. It may not be an artist's fantasy. It could be the oldest depiction of the Dracunus mediniensis. Oh my gosh. Also known as the guinea worm. Its larvae are ingested through contaminated water, and after an entire year of incubation, the situation becomes quite gruesome. The victim's leg swells, develops blisters, and a worm up to a meter long emerges through the skin. Although not lethal, the pain is excruciating. There are no documented cases of this in Italy, but it is likely the artist saw the phenomenon up close. Bari, where the painting was preserved, was a port city that was visited by many, many travelers from infected regions. Curiously, the burning snakes described by the Israelites during the Exodus from Egypt could have also been guinea worms. At that time, they were common in the Middle East, and victims described an intense burning sensation when the parasite emerged from the skin. An image that fuses art, medicine, and history is a story that is as fascinating as it is disturbing. Sarah, where can we go to find your artwork that doesn't involve worms?
It's you're gonna be able to find some good stuff at Rami Marie at picfair.com.
Rami Marie.
PICFAIR.com. Picfair. Yep.
Rami Marie at
Rami Marie.
pickfair.com. Go check it out. Pick you up a nice picture. Those are awesome. Thank you
Got
for
new
joining
ones
us
coming in
tonight.
all the
We
time.
absolutely
Yes, thank
enjoyed
you.
having
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Thank
And we
you.
can't wait to have you back for the fake moon landing, right?
Woo, yeah, that didn't happen either.
Can't wait to see you then.
All right, I'll do more homework for that one.
And Jerry, if you can't see the light,
Be the light.
Yeah.